Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with some more Total War Warhammer 2 testing. Today we're going to be having a look at magic missiles. Balthazar unfortunately doesn't have one. He's just here as a battery. Instead, we've got an Amber Wizard, let's see here, a Bright Wizard, and a Light Wizard. Going to be starting off with Amber Spear, testing it up against Noctilus here. You can see about 7,400 down to about 6,700. On an overcast Amber Spear. Decided to test against Noctilus because he has 75 armor, so he's kind of a medium armor monster here. So for the Fireball, we're going to go ahead and overcast that. Just a moment as the Bright Wizard gets back up as he's knocked over by the overcast. So yeah, you guys had requested this video, so I'm going to be testing the various magic missiles against Nocti Boy here, as well as against Infantry and Cavalry in just a moment. But figured these three would be pretty good. That one there, that Fireball did about 6,700 to about 6,200. The Shem's Burning Gaze about 62 to 5,400. So yeah, it looks like Amber Spear going to do in the area of about 700 damage on the overcast to count Noctilus. Fireball about 500 damage or so. And Shem's Burning Gaze about 800. We're going to go ahead and give it one more test here. And yeah, more or less what we expected there from the Amber Spear. And Amber Spear is going to be the most expensive, I believe. We'll have a look at the cost of these in just a moment. But Amber Spear is kind of laser beam. Fireball has more or less its own type. And then Shem's Burning Gaze is going to be the multi-shot, of which there are several others. So we're going to be looking at Soul Quench, Vindictive Glare, Gaze of Mork, and then Gaze of Nagash as well. But yeah, these three I figured would be fun to test at first, so we're going to go ahead and fast forward slightly as I do need to regenerate some more Winds of Magic. I believe we're going to do one more test here, but yeah, magic missiles having been buffed in the last patch, it seems they're going to be decently useful. They certainly will be useful for various things, and it is worth noting, Shem's Burning Gaze does fire damage. Fireball also obviously does fire damage, but it does slightly more in that it does Kindle Flame. You can see one more, excuse me, one more Shem's Burning Gaze there, knocking Noctilus down quite a bit there. Shem's Burning Gaze definitely a pretty decent, and the multi-shot magic missiles are going to be very good against single entities, from what I've seen. So let's go ahead and go to the next test here. We've got Soul Quench, which is similar in archetype to Amber Spear. It's kind of the laser beam archetype, and yeah, it does quite a bit of damage from what we'll see here. It is more expensive, I believe, than Amber Spear, and typically with Lore of High Magic, depending on the matchup, you're going to probably want to take a different spell, but went ahead and brought a High Slon here. We could have brought a High Elf, but you know, the High Slon's definitely going to be where it's at. And this one here makes solid-ish contact there. It does about 500 damage, maybe a little bit less, which is honestly a little bit limp. I thought it might have not made the best hit, so I'm going to go ahead and move the Slon up slightly. When we take the next shot. And Soul Quench in particular, I have seen people use it to snipe out artillery pieces. It is a little bit expensive, as I said. And typically with high magic, you want to be using your magic on something like Arcane Unforging. That one there did a bit more damage, absolutely. About 700 damage on that last one, more or less in line with Amber Spear. But we'll go ahead and have a look at the spell costs, you know, at the end here. Going to go ahead and move it right along. This time we've got the two green skin magic missile spells, and these are sort of what prompted this whole test in the first place. Was I've been seeing people use Vindictive Glare to very good effect, so I wanted to see, you know, how it stacks up against the other magic missiles, sort of get a feel for where they're all at. So once again, we're going to be popping Nocti Boy here, and again, about 7,400 HP. That does a solid amount of damage, a little less than 1,100 damage in total there for the Vindictive Glare, and considering how cheap that is, not to mention every time you cast you're going to be getting that sneaky stealing. Now for the Gaze of Mork there, does again solid amount of damage, not quite as much as the Vindictive Glare, but let's see, about 500 damage give or take there. But yeah, the Vindictive Glare in particular, because of that sneaky stealing, against like vampire counts, vampire coast, high elves, lizardmen, any faction that really relies on a powerful caster is going to be particularly good to spam that against. Also very good against large targets, as you saw there. And I believe from its tooltip it does indeed say good against large combatants. So I'd be curious to test this against a single entity infantry character. I unfortunately didn't run this test, or that particular test for this video, but yeah, nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit as we regenerate some Winds of Magic. I go ahead and decide, you know what, these are greenskins, they're not just going to sit around. Whoops, forgot to pop that last one off, but you can see brought Noctilus down to about 4,200 there, so yeah. Pretty good stuff, all things considered, and you can see those two were able to do more damage than the 3 Empire casters overcasting theirs, and they have used less Winds of Magic as well, so much so that I have enough for one more little Vindictive Glare there to pop Noctilus in the back of the head, and they're going to go ahead and finish him off here just for a bit of fun. Noctilus really can't fight single entity characters to save his life, and then we're going to blast some zombies here just for fun as well. You can see this particular multi-shot does manage to punch through unit models reasonably effectively. As we'll see in just a minute, Shem's Burning Gaze doesn't do the same, so I'd be curious to see, granted we did test it against a different target, but I guess that kind of tips my hand. Next we're going to look at the archetypes, again, so going back to the Empire casters. Oh no, wait, sorry, I forgot we have one more first. Oh, Helmengorst. Oh. I guess we'll have to look at Gaze of Nagash as well. Lore of Vampires, typically you're not going to want to be using your magic on magic missiles. Typically you're going to want to be using it on healing, buffs like, you know, Dance Macabre, maybe some debuffs like, what is it, Curse of Years. But Gaze of Nagash, definitely pretty powerful and one of the more expensive magic missile spells in the game. And so we'll see how it does here. Good old Helmengorst does have it, as terrible as he is. So let's go ahead and watch. Hopefully it knocks him off his feet. Unfortunately it didn't. It did miscast, but what was that sound too? That was just horrible. It did about 1,200 damage though, so in terms of the actual damage output, it is the best. Granted, it is the most expensive, I believe. We'll go ahead and do a cost comparison in just a moment here, but Helmengorst, because it was so expensive, doesn't have the regeneration abilities to cast another one. So we're just going to go ahead and try and get him into melee, just like the greenskins did. But this time, Noctilus just not accepting of Helmengorst, wishing that he was a much cooler lord. Going to go ahead and pop a shot, maybe? Oh, what's up, Gorst? Come on, blow him away. Oh yeah, there we go. Get out of here, Gorst. You're terrible. Anyway, all memes aside, let's go ahead and have a look at the spell browser here. And then we'll come back for the last couple tests, testing against Infantry and Cavalry. So, yeah, if we go ahead and pull up the spell browser, again, the 2 greenskin lores I think are the biggest beneficiaries of this. Vindictive Glare in particular, only 4 Winds of Magic for the base, 8 to Overcast. Keep in mind all of these tests were done with the Overcast version of the spell. But again, considering you get the sneaky stealing, you can run around. If you have the Goblin Great Shaman on the Wolf, there's almost nothing that can catch him. He has Vanguard deployment, so you can hide him in some sneaky place. Just run around popping these. I have a game coming up soon that was a really, really fun game where I managed to down quite a few monsters with this. So very, very powerful. Gaze of Mork, not quite as powerful, but again, if you take like Wurzag, for example, and regular Goblin Shaman, just spam these two, you could probably do a pretty good job of finishing off monsters. And as well, you know, you're going to be proccing that Bonewood Staff. He's also got Squiggly Beast to give you extra Winds of Magic, so definitely some good synergy there. Shem's Burning Gaze, keep in mind Krokgar's Hand of the Gods is essentially an overcast. Shem's Burning Gaze, let's see, it's 6 base, 10 for an overcast, does fire and magic damage, so could be potentially useful in certain matchups. Typically though, factions which can bring this can also bring a Lore of Magic which gives them healing, which is usually what you want to go for anyway. So I don't know how much you'll see Shem's Burning Gaze, but certainly there is some potential for some fun play there. I'd be curious to see maybe like a Sniper Salon build or something like that. We'll have to play around with that one a little bit and see. Fireball has long been one of the best magic missiles in the game, and you will continue to see this, especially for factions like Chaos, Norska. It gives them a nice long-range kind of counter-artillery option, potentially for sniping out a big single-model artillery piece. Does really good damage against certain types of monsters and creatures which are vulnerable to fire, obviously. Just in general, excellent, very cost-effective fireball magic missile, kind of the magic missile, I guess is what you would call it, the archetypal one. Amber Spear does pretty good damage to single entities. It's quite expensive though, 7 and 11. We'll see how it performs against infantry and cavalry, but you can see already from this little thing here that it does punch through models quite effectively, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that in more detail in just a moment here. And then, yeah, I believe I've covered all of them. High Magic. Where's High Magic? Here it is. Soul Quench is essentially like Amber Spear. Let's see. 7 and 11. Is that actually exactly the same cost? Yeah, so it's basically Amber Spear. Everything that I've said to Amber Spear more or less applies to Soul Quench as well. And, yeah, I believe I've covered them all. Gaze of Nagash. Almost forgot again. Again, the most expensive, 8 and 16, but it did do the most damage out of all of them. Although, you compare that to the damage output of Vindictive Glare. Vindictive Glare is so much cheaper. Plus, it's going to be, again, debuffing your opponent's magic recharge rate, which in that matchup, again, Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast, Tomb Kings, High Elves, a lot of matchups where the enemy's magic is going to be very, very important. If you can prevent them from casting spells very quickly, it can definitely work out in your favor. So let's go ahead and go to one more test here. We're going to get the Empire Casters. Again, they have the 3 archetypes, the multi-shot, the laser beam, and the fireball, which is an absolute unit in and of itself. And we're going to compare their performance side-shotting through a unit of cavalry. Now, I have a few replays on my channel of myself using Amber Spear like this, so I already expect the Amber Spear will be quite effective in this role, but I wanted to compare it to the other spells here and see how they would do. So we're going to go ahead and line it up. Shem's Burning Gaze first. Now, something I didn't actually consider here is Shem's Burning Gaze does fire damage. Dragon Princes have fire resistance. That being said, all the missiles hit one model and killed it, but they didn't pass through the model like other magic missiles can, and how we'll see in just a moment here. Fireball, again, does fire damage. Let's see if the Dragon Prince's fire resistance helps them. Might have saved a couple of unit models there, but still, about 5 unit models killed with that side-shotting fireball. Not too bad, but considering, you know, it's actually not too expensive either, and again, Dragon Princes have fire resistance, so that's pretty decent all things considered. But let's watch the Amber Spear. Now, Amber Spear should be the best at this, and indeed it is. Goes through about a third of the unit, killing off about, what, 14 unit models there, so that's very, very good value for Amber Spear. Basically like a cannon shot, more or less. We're going to go ahead and give it one more Shem's Burning Gaze here. And again, finishes off the 1 unit model, but doesn't pass through. Very interesting stuff. One more Fireball as well, once we have the Winds of Magic. And again, the fire resistance doesn't really save them. Well, I guess it might have saved a couple of them, but still does pretty decent damage. And obviously the Amber Spear, we know more or less what to expect, but just for fun, we're going to go ahead and watch it anyway. Come on, buddy. Quite a bit of Winds of Magic to cast all these magic missiles here. But here we go. One more Amber Spear. Oh, it just wrecks through the side of the unit. And if you had several units lined up and you cast it, for example, on the unit on the end, from what I've seen, it will pass through all of them. So you can essentially like Wind of Death someone with Amber Spear. Fireball is similar, but not quite the same. I believe that's more or less it for this test. We'll go ahead and fast forward. I don't think I do anything else, yeah. So, one last test here. We're going to go up against the Swordmasters this time and see how it does against heavy armor infantry. Swordmasters are light in terms of their mass. Elves, humans tend to be light in terms of their mass, but they do have heavy armor, so we'll see if that affects these magic missiles at all. From what I understand, they do basically pure armor piercing damage, so we'll see. I'm going to do Shem's Burning Gaze first, and we'll see if it actually cuts through the unit models. It was not able to do so with Cavalry, but with Infantry, it does actually cut through quite a few unit models. A little bit of an awkward side shot into the back of the unit there, but it actually killed quite a few of them. And let's see how Fireball does next. Fireball kind of like weirdly stalls out and then blows up in the middle of the unit, but you can see all of the unit models it passed through just got killed, and I almost missed Amber Spear, but it basically just deleted this entire unit of Swordmasters, shooting a side shot through that. Again, it passed through all of the unit models more or less and killed all the ones it passed through. So yeah, Amber Spear going to be your kind of anti-crowd magic missile, which is sort of weird to say. It's definitely going to be better if you shoot it from a low angle, like for example a Skink Chief on a Pterodon. Not going to really get good value out of an Amber Spear because it's just going to hit the ground and it won't pass through multiple models. But if you're on a low angle like this, if you can get a clean side shot through like this Amber Wizard did here, you can definitely delete quite a few units. Another Fireball just cutting through these Swordmasters, and again kind of blowing up at the end of the unit. The Fireball does more or less the same effect, but it is much slower, so potentially you can dodge it. That Amber Spear just happens so fast that if you can side shot that through a line of you know, elite units, you can do a ton of damage very, very quickly. So we'll go ahead and fast forward, as I believe I have one more Shem's Burning Gaze to cast here. Maybe. But yeah, well, one more Amber Spear just for fun. It's actually gonna probably shatter that unit. But yeah, the other Shem's Burning Gaze come in again, does pretty good damage. I'd be curious to see, and I apologize I didn't run this test. I might have to run this in the future. But if you had like a line of units and you cast it on the one at the end, how that would perform. But yeah, Teclis gonna go ahead and net this Amber Wizard here as we have a bit of fun. Bringing in the various wizards to fight Teclis and Melee here as we kind of discuss things in the end. So yeah, the Laser Beam type going to be better for crowd control, not as good against single entities just because it's not super cost efficient. Amber Spear and Soul Quench both. The multi-shot ones are going to be much better for sniping individual models, and some of them seem to have, at least Vindictive Glare, has a bonus versus large, like a true bonus versus large, where it does a lot more damage to large targets, from what I've seen. So yeah, definitely the multi-shot ones are going to be better for sniping out characters or monsters. The Laser Beam is going to be better for crowd control, and then Fireball, of course, is just going to be kind of your dual role, kind of jack of all trades. Also, obviously, again, good against units which are weak to fire. Like, you can just about one-shot a Branch Wraith, from what I've seen in previous patches, assuming that's still true, with a well-placed Overcast Fireball. So yeah, again, units which are weak to fire, and just kind of if you need a jack of all trades, just general purpose magic missile. Fireball, I believe, also has the longest range. We can go ahead and pull this up here one more time and just compare a few of these. So let's see here. 250 range for Vindictive Glare, I believe. Gaze of Mork, the upgrade, it gives you, it doesn't actually do more damage, interesting, it just extends the cast range, which gives a 400 cast range, which is quite long. Vindictive Glare does do more damage, it increases the number of missiles, so it does more damage when you overcast. Shem's Burning Gaze, again, more damage, increased armor piercing damage, 250 range as well. Fireball has 300 range, the longest base range from what we've seen so far. Again, does more damage when you overcast it on this one. Amber Spear, I believe, also just does increased damage. Yep, greater explosion and everything when you overcast. So this one has a 200 meter range, so a little bit shorter. And then Soul Quench, I believe, is more or less the same, just slightly longer range than Amber Spear. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess we could look at this one too, but it's also, yeah, 250, just a standard range. So Fireball is going to give you the greatest amount of range as well for the base version. although Gaze of Mork with the Overcast does appear to be longer. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this analysis of magic missiles in the current patch. Definitely going to be at a pretty good place, and I think Fireball and Vindictive Glare are going to be the two magic missiles that you'll see the most. You may occasionally see like a Shem's Burning Gaze, a Gaze of Mork, Gaze of Nagash, or a nice cheeky Amber Spear, but certainly I think Fireball, tech list going down there, and these Swordmasters getting Fireballed. I do think that Fireball and Vindictive Glare are going to be staples for the factions which can bring them. Well, for certain factions which can bring them. For the Empire themselves, again, most likely you're going to want to bring healing. Just by its nature, healing is most likely going to always be the best pick in most situations, unfortunately. But for example, for Norska or for Chaos in certain matchups, having that Fireball can be very, very useful. And you know, for Tomb Kings, you may potentially see some cheeky builds with Shem's Burning Gaze, but in general, the Greenskins, I would say, are the biggest beneficiaries of this with that Vindictive Glare, man. Vindictive Glare is definitely the best magic missile in the game, in my opinion, right now, mostly because it's super cost-efficient. The lore attribute for Lord Little Wah is incredibly useful to spam in a lot of matchups, and the combination of a low cooldown, less than 30-second cooldown, cheap wins of magic cost, very good damage against large targets, which the Greenskins tended to lack. They don't really have much anti-large in terms of their roster, so having another counter monster tool is always welcome. I do think it's moved up the Greenskins quite a few places in terms of the tier list. We'll have to kind of explore some matchups and really see how they stack up against certain types of builds and in certain matchups, but I definitely think that they are the biggest beneficiaries of this kind of buff to magic missiles. There are some other magic missiles that still, you know, have their place, Amber Spear and so on, but let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about magic missiles in this patch. How do you plan to use them? Are you worried that you're just going to see magic missiles spam? I don't really think, because most factions have other magic lores that are going to be better, that you really see them in too many matchups outside of potentially the Greenskins and like Chaos, Norska, and a few others. But let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.